Hello, boys and girls. We are in for another exciting online lesson. Today's lesson is on the amazing things of supply and demand, demand. It's actually not that exciting, I apologize, but it is something that is going to be very important for you to understand as you get older. This is something that is tied together with many things in life, and actually, if you understand it clearly, it could help you with the types of purchases you make and actually save you some money as you get older and have you understand a little bit more about economics and how it could benefit you. So, without any further stalling, we're going to go right into supply and demand. One thing that you need to understand when you're learning about supply and demand, you may have already heard this term before, but the fact of interdependence. You need to understand that everyone across the whole planet depends on each other, uh, from big companies to smaller, uh, like family owned businesses, even to like how you use your electronics and everything. Everything is kind of intertwined. If we have this young girl here that's working at the farmer's market, if she has her own vegetables and fruits and things like that, she could definitely have those meals and survive off of those things. But for clothing, warmth, other things in her life, she needs to depend on other people. So she needs to sell her fruits and vegetables and her eggs so then she can get money, so then she can make a trade and sell it off and buy other things that are for her needs. And also, if she has some enjoyment for her wants, because we talked about needs and wants. So these are one of those things where we are all interdependent. People depend on other people for certain things in our lives. This is true of families, towns, and even countries. Let's think about something you use in your daily lives. So, something you use currently, right now, in your hand, you are using something. The iPad. The iPad is actually helping you to communicate with your teachers and get the information that you need. Now, all the little parts that are inside the iPad and all the bigger parts, the case, the glass, everything like that, are made and produced from different types of companies. And then the overall company, Apple, puts all those pieces together and then sells you a product. But along the way, all those other pieces are actually benefiting other people to then eventually give you the single product. So let's step in now that we know that we all depend on each other. How does this affect supply and demand? Well, supply and demand, if you're looking at this, we have as the demand falls, supply rises, and then the price falls. So over here we have our supply end, then we have our demand end. So as the price rises, demand rises, and supply falls. So they're kind of like in a constant battle with each other to balance out the economy. And the perfect part is right here in the middle of the seesaw. When you get an equal amount of supply going with the demand. So as much as you're producing and making, like this young girl making lemonade, if she's making a certain amount and then selling that exact amount, that is perfect for not only the customer, but you as the owner of the lemonade stand, because you're selling off everything you're producing, because you don't want to take your lemonade and just dump it down the drain at the end of the day. You want to be able to make a profit on it. So once again, as that demand falls, supply rises, and then the price goes down. For example, if all of a sudden no one's coming around buying your lemonade, you were selling it for $1, you're going to want to drop that price down. So then maybe it entices people. They're like, oh, I didn't want to buy it for $1, but now maybe I'll buy it for 50 cents. Same thing over here. If the demand is really big, say you have those dollar glasses of lemonade, and everyone's buying it up, you might choose that you want to increase that price a little bit so then you can actually make a little bit more of a profit. A little bit more into supply. This is how much of something is available. Think about a sweet nutritional treat that is going to be in our area in the near future. So think about something that grows in our area. A lot of people visit to go pick them. I want you to think about that for a second while I'm going over this little chart over here. So the way that this supply chain works, you got to think of, well, there's people that are getting the raw materials. They're making those, the farmers, the small production areas, they're going to have that raw material. Then they might sell it out to the bigger supply chain. So those bigger supply chains that have all the large factories, such as Amazon and things like that, they are the huge supplier. They get the stuff from the raw materials. And then maybe even those raw materials are even produced in a factory and turned into something else. And then that is also given to the supplier and pushed out. Distribution, well, it has to get to the customer somehow. So then from those manufacturers and the suppliers, it gets distributed out to maybe the Walmart or maybe the Target or wherever else it would be needing. Even fast food places, restaurants, any place that has any kind of products, they have to be distributed to them in some way. And that, of course, gets distributed to those retail locations, stores. And then finally, we go to the stores and the restaurants and we buy it as the customers. So hopefully you were thinking that sweet treat. I was thinking about strawberries. Delicious. Nice sweet treat. If that around coming up in the next couple of weeks, there's probably going to be a high supply of strawberries, more so than what there was in the last couple of weeks and throughout the winter. So as this supply picks up, because all the local strawberry fields and farms, all those prices inside of Walmart and all those other stores that might get their strawberries from Mexico or California where it's nice all year round, even though they sell their strawberries for a lot of money in the winter, they're going to even have to drop their prices down because all of a sudden we're going to be getting all these strawberries from local farmers as well. So they compete because the supply goes up. Now, demand. This is how much of something people want a particular supply. When the strawberries are fresh versus out of season, well, what happens? Of course, we know that when that demand is really high, which strawberries are a pretty nice, refreshing treat, so the demand is usually there most times of the year. But if the supply isn't there, they can raise that price up. Same thing, they have to drop that price when there's a bunch of them around the area. So the law of demand, how does that work? Well, when the price of any product increases, then its demand will fall. So, for example, and then when its price decreases, then its demand will increase in the market. So a lot of you enjoy video games, maybe not all of you, but many of you enjoy video games. And this falls into that category. When a game first comes out, or a gaming system, the price is really high. Actually, I think personally too high. And people still buy it. They buy it up because they really want it. There's a high demand. They want to be the first ones to have that game. They want to be the first ones to have that gaming system, and they buy it up. Then after a while, there's not as many people that are interested or willing to pay that amount of money. So then what those companies have to do, then they have to start dropping that price down of that game or that gaming system. And then all of a sudden people start buying it again because the price went down. So more people are then willing to buy it. And like what I said before, just as a balance, they have to keep going up and down depending on what they notice and what people are buying. Now, factors that affect the demand, like why. We already talked about price, and we also talked about how much there is, but there's other factors also that go into this. We have the price that we talked about. So if it's a really high price, the demand might be low. And if the price is really low, that's a good way to get people to want to buy it. The income of the consumers, so how much money within this lesson in this unit of learning for social studies, we also talk about the income and how much money a family has within their household. So the income, if they have a low income, they may not be able to add to the factor of demand because they're not going to be wanting to buy those products because they don't have the extra cash to buy those things. Price of substitutes. So let's say there are strawberries from Moofy's farm, and then there's strawberries from Mr. Adams's farm. And Mr. Adams's farm is selling the strawberries for 50 cents a pint, but Moofy's is selling them for 25 cents a pint. Well, obviously everybody's going to want to not, no one's going to want to come to my strawberry field because I'm selling them for more. Price of compliments. Now we have, this is kind of going into the substitutes as well. So we have this price factor and how much it affects what you actually are looking to buy, like what you want and how much you want for that product. Now, changes in taste and fashion. There might be, when I was younger, everyone wanted Nike and Jordan. Air Jordans, things like that, that was like the big one. And Champion. Now, those are still around. They didn't go away completely. But now, Under Armour, if I go into the elementary school, almost every single kid is probably wearing some kind of Under Armour product. So, fashion changes a little bit. What people like, you got to do that. And then seasonal, like we were talking about with our strawberry fields. You're not going to have strawberry fields in Pennsylvania in the middle of January. But as we start getting into this season, we start to be able to have some different types of products based on the season. And then finally, advertising. Advertising, the reason I have that flashing a little bit is because later on in another lesson, we're actually going to go in and talk a little bit more about advertising and how important it is and how it influences what you want to buy and what your parents want to buy. There's different tricks that they even use to try to trick you into making you want to buy something that you may not even want. So that's all I'll say about that for now because we'll go into detail later on. So now let's take a look at this gross picture. What happens when the supply is low but the demand is high? So let's think about insects that destroy a crop. If there's a bunch of insects that infest a field and they destroy all those strawberries, you don't have as big of a supply as the farmer. You may have had 30 rows of strawberries and maybe half of them, 15 rows, got destroyed by insects. Well, now your supply is really low. So think about that as the farmer. You need to make money. You watered those strawberries. You got the plants. You had the seeds. You spent all that time and effort. So you need to not break even. You want to make a profit. So you were basing it on 30 rows of strawberries. Now that changed a little bit. So just think in your head for a second before I go to the next slide. What do you think is going to happen to those prices of those strawberries? How does that affect when that supply goes down? If you were starting to think that that means that the product, if it's going down, that you have the supply is down, that all of a sudden there's going to be an issue and the prices are going to go up, that's definite. And the word that they use for when a supply really goes away and it's not around is this word scarcity. And this word comes from the word scarce, which means there isn't a lot of it or it isn't always available. So the picture I put here is something that's all too often when we go to the store nowadays, is that there is a scarcity on toilet paper. So there are a lot of people that, even though the supply is out there, people are buying up bulk and bulk and bulk of toilet paper, and now the store shelves are running out and there is not a lot of toilet paper to be found. So the toilet paper situation is scarce. Now that we have finished our lesson on supply and demand, what I'm going to have you do is you are going to now watch a BrainPop video on supply and demand. So you'll go to your BrainPop account that your teacher has for you. You'll select the supply and demand. If you have a login account and you can log in, your teachers may put an assignment for you that you would go into uh, your area for your assignments and watch that video, and then after that you'll do the review quiz. Okay, so you want to answer the review quiz. The reason I want you to focus on the review quiz is so you can see if you get the answers wrong or right, and then what the correct answer was. So please focus on that. That way later on when we do a quiz or a test, you know the answers then. So we'll be going into BrainPop. If your teacher does not have the account set up for you, that is fine. You definitely can still go into the BrainPop and watch the supply and demand video, and then watch and answer the review quiz. Notice it says review here. So that is the supply and demand lesson. I hope you understand a little bit more about how supply and demand affects the economy, and hopefully you take these considerations in when you become older and you start spending your own money, and watch how things go, so then you can keep more money in your pocket and less money going out when you buy the things you want and need. Have a good one. Keep taking care of your family. Keep doing your best on these lessons. Bye-bye.